Hey guys, this is Second Perspective. We're gonna do a QQ for you, which means we're gonna do a discussion on Hunt for the Wilderpeople. This basically means that we're gonna be talking about spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film, get out now. We have a review, which Mitch will link here somewhere if he remembers.
Yeah, it's just gonna,
But
just circle around.
yeah, my name is not Mitch. It's Paul. That guy over there is Mitch. As you would probably figure out by our name tags. I always forget about those too.
For those of you tuning in right now, we're not having a stroke. It's fine. Okay.
Anyways, yeah, Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Again, this is gonna be spoilers, so we're just gonna discuss parts that worked for us, parts that didn't. We can unpack things we didn't understand, and we're gonna get right into it. Just to give a quick context, I gave it a B, and Mitch gave it a C plus. I had no idea who this guy was or what other films they've made before, like the group of people that have, and Mitch had. So I came in I was just like, this is just another film, and Mitch was like, this is the holy grail of everything, please. And clearly he did not think it was.
Yeah, well, it's not like it's one of those trash movies. Like, it clearly is saying something kind of interesting, and like it has characters we don't see a lot in some ways, but I also think in other ways that it like kind of it hews to this like roughly kind of conventional outlook of like heroes and villains and cranky adults and wise ass kids, and it just sort of like it twisted a little bit more in the performance than I found in the writing and the creative aspects of it. Like the kid, as you said, I would 100% agree. This kid actor is like terrific. I think it's just hard. I think it's just hard to be a kid actor. This is something that bugs me all the time. Because a lot of them are just too trained and too kind of like manicured. But when kid actors are great, they're just kids. And this kid was a kid. So I really enjoyed that.
Amazingly difficult. And you like read about different films like. Well, that might be a spoiler for a particular film, but like you just read about all sorts of films that like where the child is a key role, and they literally like audition like thousands of kids. They're like, we need to find the right kid because it's very hard to be like, you go home and practice and be a better actor. You can't just,
yeah exactly.
You can't do that really, right? So there has to be something very innate within them of a sort of a sense of ease, and this kid has it in spades. The kid's comedic timing is fantastic, like and it probably is what bolsters most of what my grade is, because if this kid's performance was pretty mediocre, I don't think I would like this film and probably would want to watch the entirety of it without him. Because
he was getting me through a lot of this. I gotta be honest, and not like it didn't elevate it to the aspect that I think it elevated your experience, but it for sure like got me through it. Like I was like, okay, I can watch him for the hour and 40 minutes because like it's
he's
him.
molestering me.
Yeah, that did make me chuckle. I will say,
it's just like I guess the reason I find those things funny is just because it's they believe they're doing something very serious, and it's just the absurdity of it is just weird.
So this was a bit of an issue for me because yes, like obviously what I think a lot of Waititi's work before as well is this sort of like bordering on self-awareness, as you said, and also this kind of like adherence to real characters and real situations. And there was something about all of this that there were like little tangents, in terms of someone like feeling abandoned, feeling like they don't have a family, so they want to venture into the wild. Like that's a cool theme to explore. But there's also this like unbelievably heightened sense to everything that I felt for the first time watching this guy's work. I felt like was just a little over the line of just like either believability or like something that wasn't just too hyper.
Well, before I sort of comment on that, I do want to say like the old man's performance was very
Sam Neill.
Who?
His name is Sam Neill.
Sam Neill.
He's like he's been around.
his performance was sort of very whatever to me. So like and that's what I'm saying. Like that's why this kid's performance is that important to me.
I for sure think Sam Neill, who was usually terrific, by the way, was a weakness in this, and his character was a huge weakness. It was basically like taking a middle-aged Carl Fredricksen from Up and just dropping him in the movie, and that to me was like what it did was it almost made his character. I'm struggling to remember the kid's name in that film, but it made his character seem
Kevin
too much like
No,
that's all right. Anyway, it made him seem like the sidekick in Up, where it shouldn't. Like he should be like the main focus and center, but because this guy was so cantankerous and like so noticeably so, you're just like, all right, now it's about an old grump and a young kid, and then they meet somewhere in the middle, and you're like, I don't need to see another one of these stupid movies. Yeah,
he says Up is stupid. Anyways, so like when you're saying it was sort of over the top with its stylistic choices.
Yeah,
is that what you were saying? Like,
yeah,
so like
and the stylistic choices. So like sometimes the camera would just like zip, past something, or like a quick quick zoom into something. Like there was just a lot of these odd choices, visual choices, and sonic choices that I think some of them really worked. And I think they worked in like the shorter form montages a lot. I actually would say my favorite part of the film by a mile were these montages, these like short little, camping adventures or, chases.
The shots where like it would like stay on something and like it would just like fade in, fade out with different characters and stuff. I actually had a small problem with that.
Okay.
I didn't mind it. But I felt like when they did it 3 or 4 times, and I feel like if you come back to something, it has to be more or different, and I don't believe that the middle ones were that more or different.
Understood. I'm probably remembering 2 in particular.
Well, yeah,
so I
like,
don't.
You're probably remembering at least one of them is where it's like doing a circle, and then the first circle is the boy and the old man going and everything, and then when you come back, it's the people chasing them that are following them. Okay, sure, that's adding something different or
that
doing
was
more.
That was the Leonard Cohen song. I sort of remember like the song choices. So that's Leonard Cohen's song. There was one earlier on, cut to Sinnerman by Nina Simone.
I'm terrible with songs.
It's fine. It's like Sinnerman. You might. Those, by the way, Nina Simone historians do not buy my impression. I'm so sorry. That was terrible. She was a wonderful musician. Anyway, so no, I would say that like those 2 montages in particular, it's like that's one of the earlier ones were I think really expertly conceived. I just think in general the reason why they stood out for me is because I found the episodic nature of this film as well just sort of segmented things too much, and so some stuff just stuck out to me as superior and some didn't, because I felt like the narrative like made sense chronologically and obviously conceptually, but just not in terms of tone or cohesiveness in terms of that.
So did you have an issue with the chapters?
Not an issue per se. I liked how it started. I just feel like I had an issue with like the strength of some versus others for sure. And I think the fact that it was in chapters kind of was a blessing and a curse. So like, you knew once that chapter was done, it'd be like a whole new, almost a new segment. But at the same time, you almost felt like you didn't have enough time with it, or it didn't flesh it out as much as you'd hoped, or yeah. I guess you seem like you're a fan of the chapter strategy. You don't care.
Yeah, whatever. Like it didn't sway me one way or the other. I just whenever I see stuff like that, I think of Bertolt Brecht. Where it's like, for people who don't know, it's the guy. He's a German theater artist, and his whole thing is that he didn't want his audience to be particularly emotional while watching his works, and he wanted his audience to think. So they see something and go, what do I think about that? Not like, oh my god, tears my face, I'm
I'm
drowning.
having this like absorbed in subconsciously, or
right. And so like he was one of the first that sort of like brought to the forefront of like having a character in your play at the end of a scene, you know, or at the beginning of a scene, come out with a sign being like, this scene of this character betraying this character, and you're like,
right.
Oh, okay, you're telling me what's gonna happen, or like, you know,
so now you're anticipating and you're trying to go around the scene in a way,
right? So and it just sort of reminded me of that kind of, and like, maybe it's just my personal thing where it's just like I'm sort of aware of that, because I don't know how I feel about that sort of choice, but I don't even know if the chapters were necessarily meant to do that. It's just it's a very distinct choice to have chapters. So
I'm just looking up the chapter titles now, because like
A Bad Egg
I sort of
is the
remember
first
them
one.
being, what's that?
A Bad Egg.
Yeah. That was okay. I was down with that, but I just feel like as it went on, like they became like you're saying, you know, Brechtian might be like, oh, is there another side to this title or this piece of information we're given? And I felt like it was like a pretty
I don't know what the chapter
did. It's just sort of a straightforward way of labeling the chapter. Like, all right, it's a bad egg. It's like, and then within 3 seconds, like, this kid's a bad egg.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is I don't know what the chapters did exactly. Right? Like,
that's
I don't
what I mean.
know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like, because like the thing is, okay,
like
so
stuff being around in this movie like that. Yeah.
So bringing into my reading, because I'm reading books a lot at this point, because I literally can't do anything else with my hand. I don't have to wear my cast all the time, by the way, guys. Woohoo! So I'm actually reading Dune right now.
Okay.
Because I'm masochistic. I don't know. It's actually quite interesting. But it's like over 800 pages long. It's a door stopper kind of thing, right? And I realized it was actually doing something really interesting. And this is going to wrap around, by the way. So
I hope so, because anyway.
So whereas like we're saying that we're not, or at least I'm not sure what the chapters titles really did for me exactly, other than being like, this is a bad egg. Like with Dune, you start at the beginning of each chapter, you're like read almost like biblical paragraph, and at first the first couple you're like, what the hell is what is this? I don't get it. Like, why am I being told this really sort of obscure biblical quote, and it like has almost nothing to do with the next thing I'm reading? But then after you get into the next like chapter 3, 4, 5, you start to realize that it's about the person you're reading about right now. So the main character that you're reading, you know, when it says like, you know, character A is this, he was humble, he had this warmth, and he was betrayed by this person, then you realize like, holy shit, it's this person. And then so it's right. So what you're doing is you're getting a piece of information, like the same story told twice, but once from having it already happened, right, and then when you're reading it in real time, right? So it sort of gives you like two different perspectives, and it sort of gives you this really sort of neat sense of you know, a story can feel different depending on what perspective you have, right?
Yeah.
And so like, okay, I get it. That's why you have those things. That's interesting. These chapter titles, I was like, he's a bad egg. Okay, this kid's bad.
Yeah, like, broken foot camp. All right, they're just at a camp. This guy's broke his foot.
Which is, you know, it's actually fractured. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I want to bring up something, because I feel like these titles, we don't want to talk about this for the rest of the time.
Moving on. We talked about it for 5 minutes.
I want to talk about, because Broken Foot, this reminded me of something. And I think one of the things that bugged me most about this movie is its use of coincidence. Because there's a lot of just like either coincidences or like little turns of like chaos that I think in some filmmakers, like the Coens are great with this. They just like have chaotic turns and things that come from out of nowhere, but they have characters respond in a way that's logical or, you know, believable in the world. And it's not that this was characters acting like out of control with no motivation. It's just that there were some things that happened in the film that either didn't pay off or didn't like weren't logically motivated. Like they just happened. Like for example, now we're going to get into spoiler territory. Like the foster mom just dropping dead.
I didn't expect that, by the way.
I didn't expect that at all, and the reason is there's no telltale sign of it. So if we're starting with that coincidence, and then the rest of it is like fairly straightforward. Okay, it's still a little much, and it's something, the accidental or unexpected death is something that happens in a lot of films, and I find it hard to be justified in many of them. And this was one of those I just didn't know, besides the fact that now this older character and this younger character are now at odds and have to work together. I just didn't see the point of having her expire so soon.
See, I don't yeah. The great ability of or the nature of watching films is I didn't bother me. In fact, I'm pretty sure I wrote it down. Like I said, that's a fairly acceptable way for me to get these two characters that very clearly don't like each other to be stuck to each other, right? And like actually, she was probably one of my favorite characters, even though
100%. She was one of mine too.
And so like I was pretty like upset. I was like, God damn it!
One of my biggest laughs in the entire movie is that Hector song. That like I was crying. It was so funny when she has this like little toy keyboard and she's just like playing in front of this cake. I love that.
So yeah, so that for me it makes it. I felt like that is a believable way or reason for these two characters to be like, okay, fine, we'll be together. Heck would be like, okay, she really cared about this child.
Yeah.
For her memory or for her in her honor, I will deal with this little shit. Right?
I guess, but he's also like pretty dismissive of it as well. So like, right. Yeah.
But I just meant like connecting the two kids together, right? The two characters together.
Yeah.
Because like usually in a film you get like, I hate you too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on the run together. Okay, let's hold hands. And you're like, really? Like I just don't believe it, right? So I would rather her have stayed because that was probably my favorite part of the film. Like that was like A- territory for me at least. Whereas like it was great. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I love the line like.
As soon as she died, it was just like...
I know.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, because they were walking on the hill at one point in the... I think the... I would call it the prologue, basically. And she's walking around, and like it's just after he's run away for the first time, and she's like... he has like, can we ride these horses? And he was like, well, why don't we just let them be horses and walk around? And I was like, that's a cool... First of all, this makes this person like... really, really dope, like just leaving those animals alone. That's a really nice and sweet thing to do. But also,
dope, like dope isn't awesome.
Yeah. Wait, never heard me say that before?
What? Oh man, I bet people, because they totally would go through all our videos. I don't think I've ever heard you say dope before. Maybe
I've approached this professionally, so sometimes I slip out.
All right, sure. I dope. That hearing you say that was dope. You keep going.
Okay, cool, man.
Do you even remember your point? Sorry about that.
Yeah, straight up, bro. But yeah, it was really nice to see her like respect, but also it showed that how much respect she had for him. That like she let him run away, but she knew that if she cared enough and was respectful of his space, that he would want to come back to her. And I thought just that like parallel between like the horses and him, like it was just a neat kind of thing. I didn't see a lot of that afterwards, that sort of like non-obvious parallel in the writing. And then so she dies. So then I just, after that, it was like, he burns himself like a decoy of himself to the ground. And then it like happens to catch next to the poison, which allows the it to explode even further, and then it collapses. And then I was trying to remember what other. There was like later on they like meet those dudes in the cabin, and then all of a sudden he starts talking about like playing with myself, and I was like, oh my god, like he's just going way too far in the dialogue to like show that it sounds like sexual abuse, even though it's not. And then also like they just meet up in the forest with the police officers. Just a lot of things like that. Like,
I actually remember that sequence where it was like the sexual abuse thing. I think it's just this film didn't feel like that kind of film.
You mean like not as
like
dark?
it felt like it dark enough to have that because it felt like it was the sort of film that I could probably watch with a younger kid, right? Not like 8, but like you know 13 to probably 13 or something like that. And like there'd be some parts where I'd be like, but like I think that's sort of part of growing up. It's just you see things you're not supposed to quite at that point.
Yeah, that's
but
okay.
like it went from like that to like playing with myself. You know, he let me do it, and like it was just sort of like I think in a different film, I think I'd be laughing my ass off. But
I don't know because
maybe
I
not
think
laughing the fall. It wasn't particularly original or anything, but like a well executed version of that would make me laugh. But with this one, it was just like I think at the very worst, you could probably like it would probably be more interesting if or appropriately tonally if it was just implied once, or he was like he actively says it doesn't, and the character's just to go. We know that he's telling you to not say that. He's like, no, really, he's not, right? Like I would almost believe that more because the character is being so absurd. Because like they talk about Terminator and like you're Sarah Connor, it's just like
that's fine. Like I didn't mind stuff like that. Yeah,
and I feel like that would just be the better tone to have instead of
just like silly banter rather than like. And I feel like it's also this kind of dark that's not like actually challenging dark because there's challenging dark which I'm always sort of a fan of, and then there's like just sitcom dark where it's like. It brings up sex stuff or like, you know, more serious issues and it's taboo, but it's not really taboo. Like we've seen it. So it's not as novel as it looks. And I was surprised because again, this is not something that like Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement and Brett from Concords or all these other, they don't traffic in that. Like it's a lot of more sophisticated or just like absolutely absurd kind of situational stuff. So the fact that it was just somewhere in between was, I think, part of why I was disappointed. Yeah.
So sorry, what was the word? Something dark you said?
Sitcom dark, I guess.
No, not the one before that.
Oh, challenging
dark.
Yeah.
What is that for you?
Exactly? I guess. Well, it's like. I guess the closest thing to it in this film was like when she guts this like warthog. You know, and that it's just sort of like. Just kind of visceral because like gutting it, like, and then she like smiles, smears the blood in her face, and it's that sort of like, oh, we're working with like, could she be depraved, or is she just like really just gung ho about hunting? Like,
what's a different film or something, or a really good example of challenging?
I guess like the stuff and challenging in a way that like Clockwork Orange like just pushes boundaries in terms of. Not just like how it depicts sex, but how it depicts like violent sex or like violence in general, or how people are attracted to it, or how they're repulsed by it and they repress it. I mean, just things that like challenge. That's like a very extreme example of like challenge dark, but just like in terms of how they would insert a darker element into the story, but like actually use it in a way that's either more sophisticated or pushes that line even more than you're expecting.
So it's like almost something like you present a darker element or story part for people to internalize and consider, not
whereas this is like just like when they're talking about you play with myself, I was like, oh, obviously
you're trying to make me laugh.
It's not, you didn't diddle him forest, like okay. I don't know, it was stuff like that just sort of turned me off of like the trajectory of where this was going.
So, as for those who don't know, Mitch and I are both aspiring filmmakers and stuff like that. So, like that's part of the reason why we sort of linger on parts that you may think others would not, and it's sort of nice for us to unpack certain things to see like how we think it works, or open it to be like, we really don't know how it works, which is always good because once you know what you don't know, then that's when you start to learn, right? But so my next question to you then is, what do you think of that statement that, like, I think it was like one of those Pixar things where they talk about storytelling, and it might where it basically says like coincidence is okay, but using coincidence to get yourself or your character's into a problem,
into
not
something
out.
is fine, but
Right.
out of it, not so much. And so this is exactly what I was thinking of. I'm glad you actually brought it up because I forgot to bring it up myself. Yeah,
Okay, so
I feel like
now the thing is you did mention the my hands were too soft in that whole section. That's getting them into trouble. So why doesn't it work for you anyway?
the reason is that it gets them into trouble, but the way they get out of it is I'm trying to even remember how that scene unfolds. There's just like a scuffle, and then like someone picks up a gun.
The child picks up a gun, fires it, and he's like, "I'm gangster."
Right.
Just got real.
Right.
And then they.
But it's just sort of it's like resolved very quickly. Like there isn't really a twist, and they just sort of like leave them, and then they take their guns, but then they end up like finding the police anyway. So it's just sort of a temporary measure. Like a lot of these are just sort of like slightly temporary, but not specifically interesting solutions to problems. And then there's another coincidence, and there's a little small, and there's another. I just felt like it followed that pattern like pretty quickly. Where like, yes, we got the coincidences in, but not always out. But the solutions themselves weren't like particularly interesting or dimensional to watch. So I guess that's part of my problem. And then I don't know. I do feel like at the end as well, if we want to skip to like the car chase. Special.
Just jumping wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Why not? Because this time is non-linear. So we're just jumping to the end here, and this like giant car chase is just essentially, it's a build-up to are they going to get caught or are they not going to get caught, and then they get caught, and then that's it. It's like, okay, now it happens that the judge is like pretty lenient on both of them. They like pretty much get away almost scot-free. And then it's the end of the movie, and the relationship is better. Like, it just feel like a lot of the stakes weren't raised high enough for those coincidences to be like justified.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess like that's because like that's what I had said in the review, right? Where it's just I wasn't sure exactly why, but I felt like these moments should have been. I'm coughing my guts out right now.
What's happening? Oh, you dying? Going away,
dying to mediocrity. I just don't understand. I'm not sure exactly why the ending for me felt like I didn't feel any sort of like sadness or.
Let me tell you my thing is I think that like the character of and I'm gonna look this up because it is literally driving me insane. But the character of Ricky, oh my god, this took me a million years. Of Ricky Baker was dimensional in the way that like he came from a broken home, but there's some either unspoken trauma or just like some complications to his history that make him a fascinating kid. So he's like obsessed with gangsters and like hyperviolence, but also like pretty sweet, kind of like
bookworm,
loyal, cute kid. But I feel like the characterization of Hector versus Ricky is like so staggeringly like offbeat that the relationship between them is going to come off as kind of one-dimensional. And that's why like when all of a sudden, he breaks his foot rather, he falls down, and then they just sort of like are together for a little bit. And I would say it's almost like 15 to 20 minutes later in the film where they're pretty close. They're like pretty genial, and they like each other, and they like hanging out with each other and doing stuff. And the transition to that, it just is not compelling, to be honest, to see. And that's one of the main counterpoints or cruxes of this film in terms of the relationships. So, whereas I think in like, in What We Do in the Shadows, the relationship between three vampire housemates is like 100,000 times more delicately characterized, and they have not just quirks but their own like little neuroses and things that they interact with each other. So when there's like a small twist at the end and stuff, it really pays off, and it feels like you're earning something. So I think a lot of this film just sort of fails. I think I'm coming back to it, but with this central relationship and just with the sort of the lackadaisical nature of like, you know, we're getting into a situation, but it's not as hairy as we expect yet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, I felt... this is going to be a very sort of... Ooh, there's a car outside.
Ooh. Ambience.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm coughing so much all of a sudden. But,
guys, this is the last podcast Paul ever does. I mean, who knows?
Apparently. The image that I have in my head, and I can see the exact shot that's giving me that sort of feeling, is I feel like I'm getting the flint or the spark of what I'm supposed to feel, but I'm not getting it lit. Like the actual... So, like, I can see the shot. It's when Ricky's holding the gun, and I've said it a few times. He's like, he's molesting me, and like all that stuff. Like, that moment should actually... I feel like if it was sort of executed the way the director wanted, I bet you that would have been a great moment. Right?
Yeah, just because like it's hysterically like, funny, but like so unhinged.
It should be absolutely heartbreaking. The fact that he would actually turn on his best friend, his only friend, and say that he's smart enough, he knows what that means, right? Mm-hmm. So like the idea of that, the idea of that sort of decision from that character, I think that bothers me more than what the actual moment did, right? And I think it should be great. And I don't think the performance of the kid, the choice and the performance of that of Ricky Baker at that moment was bad or anything.
No,
right?
no, there's nothing wrong with on a moment to moment level, just on the building of it. And I think comedy is about build. That to me is like such an important quality of the genre, is just how do you start from a small seed and build into like a giant tree in a sense. And that's, I mean, drama as well, but I think especially comedy is that if you don't build higher and higher and higher, then how do you get to those like heights where you're just like crying with laughter? And I think it just doesn't build enough in that way. Yeah.
So I guess what we're saying is that that we believe that the core issue for us to not for the reason that we didn't enjoy the film as much as we had hoped is that there's something in the mechanics of the actual relationship between the two main characters just was faulty. And so even though one part of it worked really well for me more than you, but like it still worked, because the other part was not working, it was sort of just it was like a shit like they each had an oar, but instead of going straight, they were just sort of going in circles. Right. It's just sort of like Ricky Baker is doing the best circles in the world, but it's just like it's going in circles. Is that basically what we're saying?
I guess so. I guess that's like a huge element of what I'm saying. But there's also just stuff like I don't know, subjectively, like the character I guess like a juvenile officer, or like she's a child protection services woman. I just found her kind of unlikable and not particularly fascinating. And the other cop was
no
sort
save
of
the cat moment for her.
Yeah, there's just not much besides she's on one hand willing to believe that this old man is a pervert, but she also despises this kid enough that she wants to get him into another foster home. Like, just motivationally it's odd, and it doesn't really speak to anything besides like, oh, I'm just a crazy, crook on the
biggest plot device we'd ever seen.
Yeah, pretty much. And I found plot devices, if you're going to be a plot device, you got to be friggin' entertaining as hell. And I just found that she was
a ghost. Or a dog ghost.
It's a dog ghost. Hi, dog ghost. Ghost dog. You can't see him, but he's like below a frame, probably.
Well, he's a ghost, so of course you can't see
him. He's a ghost dog. Ooh, his ears flying by himself. Okay,
it's not a true QQ unless the dog intros one of us.
That is true. That's right.
My dog is actually sleeping on my bed right now, over there. See?
Dog stories. Let's all show our dog those.
Hey.
I know.
I think this is time for us that we are actually indeed done talking about the film. Yeah. Overall, I mean, yeah. I just
found myself disappointed. That was the genesis of my C+ grade. It's not a horrifying travesty. It's just that it wasn't.
It's sort of like me watching Seven Psychopaths, where I love In Bruges, and like it's obviously a more minor case, but I was pretty disappointed
You really didn't.
You were like, it's all right. It's not bad. And
I
I'm
actually
like,
really like Seven Psychopaths.
oh, you do? Well, you're an idiot.
Like,
no, just kidding.
Okay.
No, I haven't seen it in a long time. I might actually. That's the thing I've been learning about myself. Actually, is that I'm super mood based when I watch films, and like I'll still watch it even if I'm not into it or I'm tired of watching. I'll still watch a film because, I mean, shit, I can't do anything else right now. But like, I guess it's we'll end on one of Paul's random rants again, and that's how we'll end this episode. But
just beat poetry, just
yeah. So, like, believe it or not, Looper is actually one of my favorite films of all time.
Really?
Yes,
I'm pretty surprised by that, actually.
It's an A+ for me.
Oh wow, okay.
I've seen it like 5-6 times. You want to know the grade that I gave it when I first saw it?
What was it, like a C?
A B.
A B. Okay, so like.
Okay, and I remember distinctly being like, why the hell did it have... Okay, there's a very distinct sort of structural change.
Yes.
So Mitch knows what I'm talking about. I was like, why the fuck do they have that weird structural change? It's stupid. Yes. Go back to the cool stuff. And like, maybe I was just an idiot back then, which, you know, I'm probably not that much of a different idiot now, but... And I was just like, that's stupid, whatever. And like, I was also like, why did they do this weird superimposed weird face thing with the main character? And I was like, okay, whatever. And then I ended up watching Looper again for some reason. I think my girlfriend hadn't seen it at that time, or I don't know. I'm probably making some bullshit answer. But long story short, I ended up watching it again. I was like, huh, that actually works. Okay, first of all, the face thing didn't bother me anymore. I was like, all right, that's fine. Right. And then I actually watched it again. And I was like, actually, that makes a lot of sense to me emotionally why they did that. Okay, cool. And then I watched it again and again and again, and it keeps. I mean, the more I watched that particular film, the more I appreciated it, and the more I really enjoyed it. And there have been other films that I've watched the first time, being like, yeah, it was okay, or yeah, it was really good but not great, that I've rewatched, and I'm like, damn, that is fantastic.
Do you think this will morph for you? This one we watched today?
No.
But, and that's a problem for me. Because
although I didn't think Looper would either.
True, but I also think that like in my opinion, I can usually tell when I I'll watch even an episode of a show. I'll just like watch, something, and I'll be like, this was okay. And then I'll watch another episode afterwards and like, oh, actually that first one was a lot better than I thought. And then it slowly builds. Like, this is how I thought of... I didn't love Arrested Development Season 4, but I really liked it. And the reason I did is because I kept watching, and as I kept watching, the earlier ones became better and better in my head because of what we were learning. And I think the films also sometimes do that. You come back to them, and they just sort of change and morph and offer you different things. This one, I've watched it once. I get it. I get what they were going for. There's just nothing else, and I feel like that there's just
sort of blasé.
That special touch just doesn't really exist there. Yeah.
I was actually thinking Seven Psychopaths was the one that I would watch again and be like, okay, maybe. And I think
that you should try again.
Yeah. And I think part of it, for it to work that way, where like you will appreciate it more, is one, it's just a complicated film that sort of like parts just don't make sense to you at first. You're like, this is just weird as shit. Like Enemy is like probably the prime example.
Obvious. Like, okay, I gotta watch this again because like what is happening?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, that's an extreme example of like, okay, this is weird. I don't really understand what some of these moments are. I'm getting through it because it's sort of neat visually or stylistically, and there are bits and pieces that drag me through. And then as soon as you end it and then you watch it again, you're like, oh, A+. I mean, not A+, but like, probably pretty high up there. And then the other kind of film that often happens like that for me is ones that I strongly disagree with the choice. Or I don't really understand why, with Looper, right? Being like, this is stupid, whatever. And I realize that I've gotten hung up on something else, right? I wanted just more cool, spinny shit. But then I realized that the actual story was based on something in particular, right?
Yeah, so this happened for me almost exactly the same, except like a little bit different in terms of the reasoning. But True Grit, the Coen Brothers remake.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I remember
I watched it the first time, and I think I just come off of I think it was like A Serious Man and Burn After Reading and all these kind of hyper aware comedies that were either like zany or just like really weird and maybe profound, maybe not. And there was something simple about True Grit that threw me at first, and I didn't like it. I was like, this is too much an adaptation of a novel, not really kind of this Coen-esque thing that I was expecting. So that was the first time that I saw it. And then I saw it again with my dad about like a few weeks later. And when I was watching it, I was like, oh, do you know what this is? It's not that it's simple. It's clear and direct and distinct. And it's very much a Western, but it has some little twists as to about like fate and, you know, which characters, what they deserve and what they want out of their life. And I just thought once I saw it from a different lens, that it became a lot better. I was like, oh, okay, now it's actually a full-blooded adaptation of something. And the language is really rich. And I was, you know, so some things just take a little settling into.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need to like put on, as you say, a different lens. I do think if you watch this film again, I think you probably raise your grade just because like it is fairly well done. There's nice moments and everything. It's just I think the thing you want it to be and the hopes that you had sort of taint it pretty hard. But I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna be much better than a BB plus. Yeah, so I was kind of surprised when I was like, wow, it's got like 7.9 or some shit on like IMDb. It's like
not even that. I think it's like 98, 99% of Rotten Tomatoes, which to be fair, it means like 99% of people are like, it's pretty good.
Yeah, like that's, so, if you don't know about that, about Rotten Tomatoes, it's not like it is a 99 out of 100 kind of film. It's 99 out of 100 people or whatever, like some arbitrary number, percent of that number think it's worth your time, right? It might be the most barely worth your time film in the world, right?
Correct.
But it's still worth your time, right? So it's just that's how Rotten Tomatoes works.
I know, and that's why I always just read the little blurbs, or I like go to my sources to sort of see the grades there, and just or just go to it, you know. Anyway, that's why I had this huge expectations because even the lowest grade review that I saw was a B. And it was like a source that I was like pretty rough on like a lot of movies that I like. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I don't know. You know what? To each their own.
And with that, we'll leave Mitch to toil in his despair.
I'm fine. I'm gonna be fine.
No, he's not okay. He's in full despair. All right, guys. Again, my name is Paul. God damn! I'm gonna
point to myself.
There,
me.
And then the guy pointing to
that's it.
The guy pointing to himself is Mitch. And this has been a long, winding episode of QQ, and we're okay with that.
You might as well say we've gone through the bush. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about.
All right, guys. Bye.